Good evening, everybody. This is Cinnamon Noir.
And this is the Ramen Shaman.
Welcome to the last video for 𝘱𝘱, the true finale. So the first thing I thought we'd start with is covering some things I failed to do in the first playthrough.
Okay.
For one thing, you might have noticed, you might remember, I stupidly forgot to do this book. You're allowed to not see it, and you can just bypass it. But it's worth seeing, even with these horrendous crayon graphics. So yeah, this is Carrie Careless and the Galette de Roi, which is King's Cake. You've heard of King's Cake, right?
I think I'm familiar with the concept.
Yeah, one person gets the slice with with a coin in it. Spoilers. And the one who gets the coin is the king. There's something called bean cake as well that does the same thing, if you get a piece with a bean in it. So Carrie Careless, living up to her name, swallowed the coin. Which is pretty gross, but also something kids do an awful lot. And interestingly enough, the door that we need to get through is also in this book. And the key to it was right here. Or not. This is a coin. That was supposed to be in the... Oh dear. What a funny mishap this is. Well, we need that key. And she swallowed it. So...
Oh!
Hey look, a knife. Oh, silly. This is a fun book. Yeah. You ever see Saw?
Oh!
Anyway. So yeah, that's how that book goes.
Just wait a couple days. Like, it's not gonna be fun to survive.
Garrett is far too creepy for that. So this is the room that we failed to get in the first playthrough. It really is just a place with a vase in it, so that you can restore your health, which is important in this area. But it is totally optional. Oh, and there's a little book that you can read there. Other than that, though, not much to it. So, in this second playthrough, we did more to cultivate Gary's favor. We were more of a friend to him. And the result is, when he burns down the painting, he cuts his hand. And 𝘱𝘱 gives him her handkerchief, which was a present from her mom, to wrap up his hand with. Oh, and also we see a few things from Mary that we didn't read in the first place, which reveals her motivation, which is that she does want to get to the outside, but she knows that someone would have to take her place. So this was the nucleus of her whole plan. I don't know who told her that she could get out if she switched places with somebody. It might have been 𝘱𝘳𝘳. He does seem to have some strange, life after death going on. Yeah, and that's really sad. Carrie finds she had a book with her called How to Make Friends.
Yeah.
So, when you go through a second playthrough and get to the gallery at the end, when you go down the stairs, you will not actually end up in the gallery. You will end up in this area, which is the final puzzle part of the game. There's actually a whole additional area, kind of like DLC, but in the game, that you have to go through. So I was wrong about what that said earlier. I thought it was when the rose wilts, you'll wilt away. But what it says is when the rose wilts, you will rot away.
Rot away.
Much nastier. So I'm just going to come out and say I love this section of the game. The puzzles are a little bit more complicated, so it feels like it's advancing. And there's tons of new artworks in here, including some of the most creative in the game. I also like to see the return of the ant. He was one of my favorite characters from the first episode of the playthrough, and now we have a white one. Sort of a counterpart. So there's two major areas in this final dungeon. There's the orange area and the purple area. The purple area is probably the harder of the two, but the orange area has some really diabolical puzzles. So to start with, we need to deal with this room, which has all these puzzles in it. I love how this is a painting of tea from which actual steam is coming out. I like to think it's like an automat or something, like there's a real cup of tea behind it. Like it's a diegetic smoke, I don't know.
Or it's it's like a special effects kind of thing.
Yeah. Like Mysterio set this up.
Then.
Oh, and the white ant goes back into the painting, which gave me a little aneurysm for a moment, because I'm like, I don't want to step on the ant. But I don't think you do kill him, because there's no squish. So these stubborn twins are actually enemies. They're like Venus flytraps. They will eat you if you try to go through there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they only take away 1 hit point or if they'll insta-kill you, because I wasn't crazy enough to try.
Gotta find out.
Yeah, exactly. So here's what looks like a giant clock, only it seems to be missing the part that actually is the clock. One thing I like about this final area is it sort of has this feeling of being like a warehouse, which makes sense, because it's like the back area of the gallery.
Mm.
Oh, and this painting was a mistake. Just like anime. Anyway, in this area, a bunch of arrows will fall through the sky. You need to just dodge them. And there is a thing at the end where if you break it, the arrows stop coming. So it's not a sign that you shouldn't go there, but it is just a little gauntlet. Oh, and Gary's lighter is out of oil, so no more of that for us.
Oh dear.
No more burning paintings like a bad little kid. We're just going to have to find another way to light up that room. I think it's just as well. The last time Gary used a lighter to light up the room, he really caused a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I was going to say, that didn't go well.
So here's a butterfly stuck to the wall, like a real living butterfly. And you can pull out the needles. That's our good deed for the day. In case you're wondering, you do need to do that. It's actually the only thing in this area, so. And then this guy comes out. The mistake. So this is a new type of enemy. He doesn't chase you around like the others because he's actually blind. He has that thing in front of his face. But he will bumble around and he can put a hurt on you.
Ooh.
Later on, we'll find him in more restricted areas, which will make it even harder to keep out of his way. Let's take our new butterfly friend. Oh. Gotta catch him again. So we went into the candle, which is interesting, sort of a moth to a flame kind of thing. Can you guess what we do with this? Well, now obviously we have a portable light source. So that, in fact, is what we do with it. It's our way of lighting up the room. I was treading really carefully here, because I was worried there might be an enemy in here. Seems like exactly the kind of trick that 𝘱𝘳𝘰𝘱𝘬 would play. But no, actually there's just a bunch of numbers. This is the point in the game when you are probably going to have to start taking notes. I know I did. This is a complicated puzzle involving having to enter 5 numbers based on clues from several different rooms.
I'm getting Pokemon flashbacks with this.
Oh, really? The complexity of it reminds me of Fez, but you know. Oh, there's a switch in here. Probably too much to expect that to turn on the lights. Anywho. So, there are 5 canvases in this room. Each one refers to a different painting in the next room. Oh. That's not good. Okay, so that was not an enemy. That was just a vase that fell on the floor. Messing with me.
Oh, well.
The room is a little bit smaller than you might think at first, but it's big enough to be a nuisance. Anyway, the numbers you see on the canvas are numbers that you have to enter into the keypad. And the order you need to enter those numbers in is based on the order that those various colors that the numbers are in appear on frames in the room that was to the right.
Oh, God.
It's a little bit hard to deal with. This pause you're seeing here is me getting out a piece of notepaper to write down all of these notes. I think actually you can even hear me in the background if you listen really closely. You can hear a rustling.
Yep. Yeah, I can definitely hear.
Do you like puzzles like this in games?
I don't usually like them this complicated, I'll be honest.
I kind of have a love-hate relationship with puzzles like this. Like, I felt similarly about Fez. But when I was younger, I played a lot of the text adventures that my dad liked. when he was younger. And a lot of those have these crazy puzzles, which are like this, but less interactive. Anyway, so I managed to write down all the numbers. And so we can see here that red is supposed to go first, then the blue number, the yellow number, the purple number, and finally, you have to remember this because you took it off the wall, the last one was green.
Oh, yeah.
It's not too hard to remember because the painting is still in the next room, the anthill.
Are you still lugging that around with you?
No, you put it down over the hole.
Oh, duh, right.
We are still carrying the butterfly painting, though, which is odd. Eve does seem able to carry quite a few paintings around with her.
Well, that's the nature of adventure games, right?
Yeah, it's hammer space.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, it is 72391. I think if you get this wrong also, you will be punished. I could be wrong.
Is it like losing health, or...?
I'm pretty sure it's losing health. I could be wrong. Oh, and our butterfly friend leaves.
I was going to say, that would be pretty harsh if it wasn't.
Definitely. So,
or pretty nasty considering how tough this puzzle is.
Right, you could easily slip up and make a simple mistake. Anyway, now that it's night, these guys are asleep. But we still need to get the orange key to get out of here. So this was only half of our problem dealt with. So the white ant wants something sweet. That might be something we can work with. Not in here, of course.
No.
Oh, the tea cooled down, though. That's just a little... I don't know if I'd call it an Easter egg. It's just a little thing, but it's kind of fun.
It is clever, though.
No, the thing we need to get for the ant is in the other room. Yeah, we don't have the light anymore, so we cannot go back there. And by the way, at this point I was wondering if maybe you needed to pull the snake's tail. I didn't want to. As you can imagine, in a game where several things are insta-kills, I was very nervous about waking up a giant snake.
Yeah.
But I eventually do it. So this is just sort of a shortcut.
Oh.
You can get past it this way. It's possible that if you do this during the day, that you will get eaten. I'm not sure, because it's been a long time since the first time I've played through this, and I have only played through it twice. So there's lots of stars in this painting. And if we shake them, one of them will come out. And create stardust. Which is actually candy. I'm pretty sure that what's intended is that this is what's called competo. I don't know if you've heard of it. But they're little, like, crystalline pieces of sugar candy that they make in Japan. I don't know if you've played Super Mario Galaxy, but the star bits from that game look exactly like competo. Also interesting is that competo comes from the Portuguese confeito, which is basically the word confection.
Oh, that makes sense.
Actually, a lot of Japanese sweets are Portuguese in origin, because Japanese people didn't eat a lot of sugary foods before the Portuguese came in.
No, because there probably wasn't a really readily available source of sugar.
I love how when you read the title of this Queen of High Society, you hear clapping. Yeah, another Portuguese-inspired Japanese dessert is called castera, which is literally Castile cake. It's like a yellow sponge cake with a chocolate topping. Really simplistic, actually. It's just like a white cake, but... So, oh, sorry, I was wrong. The second area is not the purple area. We had the purple area back at the beginning of the game. This is the blue area. The final puzzle area of the game, and possibly the hardest, all things considered. This challenges a lot of different aspects of your brain, and to a certain extent your fingers. But we'll see that. The goal, as you might already have seen, is to get up enough tiles to fill up that painting. We get basically one in each room, with some exceptions. So yeah, we're not going to find that painting. That's alright. We're not going to find the rest of the missing pages in that book. But I'm probably going with Gary. I think it is probably true that that's 𝘱𝘳𝘰𝘱𝘕's handwriting. Because the deeper we're going into this, the closer we're getting to 𝘱𝘱𝘰𝘱𝘕's true mind, so to speak. We're really plumbing the depths, as it were.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and here's a bunch of eye paintings by 𝘱𝘱𝘰𝘱𝘕, who seems to have been very interested in eyes. Another thing that would link him with Picasso. Enlightenment we've seen before. That's the painting that just has the eye pointing to the right.
Oh!
That was in the gallery at the beginning of the game.
Oh, and charcoal was applied directly to the canvas and it suffered some damage, which is why 𝘱𝘱𝘰𝘱𝘕 is really particular about that.
Oh, yeah, I never even thought about that. I was kind of glossing over these descriptions, to be honest. Now, obviously, artists are often very upset about people getting near their paintings and touching them. With a charcoal painting, it does make sense it'd be more of a concern because he probably didn't varnish it. I'm sure you're aware of this. Most paintings aren't just paint on canvas. They apply a varnish to the top to protect it.
Yeah.
And to give it a certain view, you know, so it doesn't look just like paint on canvas. One of the things that really annoyed avant-garde artists back in the day is that people would use a varnish so glossy, it was called a licked finish, that it didn't even look real anymore. It was too perfect. And they said it made it look kind of like sloppy, so that's the one reason the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood called the most respected painter of their day.
I think I can understand that if it was sort of like flawless.
I don't know if you've heard of William-Adolphe Bouguereau. He's a French painter. But his paintings are like that. They're just too perfect. Anyway, this room is an endless hallway. It says only the pure of heart can find the way through here. And apparently we're not, so we need to find something else. You go ahead.
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
I was finished.
Oh. My bad.
Okay, I will say one more thing. That the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood called Sir Joshua Reynolds Sir Sloshua because of his use of the licked finish. Really kind of nasty when you get right down to it, but British people have always been very good at... British people have always been really good at invective.
Yeah, no kidding. Were they... Was this, Oh, and you said it was British.
Yeah, the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood were a bunch of young punks. Dante Gabriel Rossetti, who was also a poet, was one of them. So was William Holman Hunt, John William Waterhouse, and John Everett Millais. You've probably seen his painting of Ophelia, because it was in like every woman's college dorm room for a while.
Yeah, I think I am familiar with that one.
The one where she's drowning. A lot of their paintings are actually quite good, but I don't agree with their artistic stuff at all. I mean their philosophy.
Their artistic philosophy.
They're called the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood because they believed that after Raphael, painting got too perfect and it got away from the like homey qualities that medieval painting had.
That does sound kind of pretentious and hipster.
They were like history's first hipsters. It's amazing.
I'm guessing they probably weren't. I suspect.
Well, okay, fine. What I mean is, they're the first people who have a lot of the characteristics we now associate with a hipster. Pretentiousness is eternal.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think certain qualities in there are as old as civilization itself.
Yeah. Speaking of certain qualities, this puzzle is to figure out what certain quality exactly one of these paintings has that none of the others does. And you have to point it out. You're given the ability to point at top, middle, or bottom for every row. So... Anyway, this room is a very curious one. This is one of the few sort of physical exercises you have to do in this.
Avoid red, choose black. Pac-Man much?
It is like Pac-Man. Actually, now that I think about it, the corridors are even quite similar. Not just that they cram you in, but even the design's a little bit similar. But yeah, these guys are annoying. They just go all over the place, and some are really super fast while others move slower.
Yeah, I can see that.
However, there is an easy mode for this, which is if you are getting annoyed with this, Gary will offer to do it by himself. I don't know if you remember, but Gary has more hit points than 𝘱𝘳. He has 10 instead of 5. You also find out in this room that Gary is faster than 𝘱𝘳. So he finds it easier to pick these things up.
Which makes sense. He's a little older.
Right. Longer legs. Anyway, one thing you have to get is that one stick figure guy. They're made out of charcoal, by the way, like a lot of Gertner's paintings. You need to find the one that's holding that bird. Because that bird's really being harassed here. I think he's riding the bird. I didn't notice that before. I thought he was, like, holding on to it. But yeah, I guess he's riding it. Speaking of being ridden, I got ridden right there, so I had to edit that out. That was a death. I decided not to switch to Gary, though, because it wasn't so much that I'd gotten worn out as that I'd gotten trapped in a position I couldn't escape. That, of course, is the second time this happened to me in this playthrough. You might remember the first time was in the maze in the purple area.
Yeah.
These two red guys are surprisingly hard to get away from. They track your movements very well. You have to sort of chase the black ones into an area that's farther away from the reds in order to get them. Otherwise, you just put yourself in too much danger, because the red ones can team up on you. And once they've got you in a corner... Okay, so here's me getting a little annoyed. Fortunately, the room does not reset when you leave. All the ones you've captured, they stay captured. And you can actually, by exiting and re-entering the room, manage to get them in a more favorable position for catching. So that's a reason to leave the room. Oh, that poor bird. Okay, so finally I resort to Gary. Gary is super fast and he has 10 hit points, so... Like I said, easy mode for this room.
Wow. Yeah, no kidding. He is... Does it hurt your relationship with him at all to do this?
Oh, no. Not at all. There are lots of ideas in this section of the game. I was really impressed, because this is a totally bonus area. It was actually released after the original version of the game, I think in 1.3. And honestly, the ideas in this could be a whole new game if they were stretched out. That's clever. Anyway, we freed that bird, which is nice. Now he'll follow us around. And yeah, much like Mary, it seems that anything drawn by 𝘱𝘳 is also capable of drawing more stuff. For some reason, this reminds me of the SpongeBob episode where he has the magic pencil that creates an evil version of himself. I don't know why.
Yeah. Like, that's definitely spreading.
Yes, the creepy black stuff all over the floor. Lord knows what it is. By the way, I love... Sorry, go ahead.
It looks kind of like water damage, actually.
Which would also make sense, him being an artist. Something he'd be obsessed with. I was listening to an audiobook recently, actually, about an art collector who was talking about some finds he'd made, and he was talking about just a place where all these paintings were kept. Some of them really good ones, in these horrible conditions where water would drip on them. Really shameful. Anyway, so you have to follow the bird. Follow that path all the way through. I will confess, I edited out some stuff here. I edited out several failures. It's not quite as easy to know exactly where the bird's supposed to be going as you might think. And yeah, like you said before, literally with every single picture piece you find, this room starts getting more and more filled up with this, whatever it is. So this room actually looks quite easy. I mean, as long as you pay attention.
Yeah.
Here's another area where Gary says he's willing to do it himself. I honestly think Gary being faster might not be much of an advantage here, because you might run into stuff.
True.
However, you do have to be reasonably fast, because as soon as you start the maze, this thing starts floating after you. Ooh. And I don't know if it's an insta-kill or not, but I was not willing to find out.
Yeah.
So you get to the end and break that rose, and it'll get rid of it.
Well, that's good.
Well, there was really no other way for you to escape from it.
Unless you had another exit, you weren't going to be able to get away from that thing. Oh, and it's getting worse.
Yep. Just gets worse and worse. And we still have 3 more to get.
I guess it could be like charcoal or something, but it really does look like water.
Yeah, I think
water damage specifically.
the blue color in here, I think, was deliberately chosen so that the sort of inkiness of it would... I mean, it would make it seem more like water.
Mm-hmm.
So after doing a few other rooms, Gary will offer to rest for a bit here. I think maybe after you do the charcoal stick people room. So Gary tells you to take a rest and not to leave the room. Unfortunately, you cannot wake him up. He gets into a pretty deep sleep here.
Yeah.
So Ebe decides to read for... Oh, what the heck is happening?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah. Oh, it's a painting Ebe doesn't know the name of. I'm sure it's not something creepy. You know, I thought for a minute that painting was actually going to attack Gary. That's what this was going for. It was like unavoidable horror.
Mm-hmm.
But, actually, I think it's just meant to be slightly shocking. You can't leave the room either, so what you need to do is start checking out all of these bookcases from various angles. And eventually you'll find there is writing on the backs of some of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like... Because... Well... If you think about a bookcase being, like, two-sided...
Mm-hmm.
Having different books on each side.
Technically they aren't. Actually, these are just straight-ahead bookcases. But there is writing on the backs or sides of several of them. I haven't figured it out yet. Like I said, it's been a really long time since I first played through this final area. Several years at the very least.
Fair enough.
I mean, you've seen from the title screen, this game has been out since 2011. It's technically an old game by now. It's older than BioShock Infinite.
True.
And more intelligent. Anyway. So, oh, here's something I didn't notice before. A clipping sticking out of this book. And the diary is missing. That's a little weird. No. Oh. Now that is interesting. A book that says how to enter a secret room. Read the writing on the back of the east bookcase.
I mean, that is... I guess that's kind of one way.
Oh, you should also read this. Once you enter the secret room, you need to leave by touching the lower right wall, and if you don't, you'll never blank again. I don't know what that word is, and I don't want to know what it is.
I think it's should you do something you'll never leave again.
Oh, sorry. Should you blank, you'll never leave the room again. You're right. Okay, so the gap behind the long bookshelf is here. And then we go into the painting. Oh, sorry, the canvas. Really not a sensible idea to close your eyes when you're in this world, but we do it anyway. Ebe's very impressionable. And we end up in this room. So, this is one of the most curious puzzles in the whole game. It takes place in its own little dream world, and it's called Blank Crows and 5 Blank. So this is a panoramic painting. You need to be able to observe that at a certain point it starts repeating, and therefore, right before it starts repeating is the whole thing. So yeah, the first thing I thought was, oh, there are 5 flowers. Like some of them are being held by the crows, right?
Uh-huh.
That is not true. So we get hurt.
And how many crows?
Oh, there's 1, 2...
2...
3.
3...
3 crows. There are also 5 fish. Oh, we got that right,
so
thank
that was
goodness.
Right?
Oh, and it fills in the word once you've gotten it right. Yeah, it's definitely 3 crows.
Oh, this is you counting.
Yeah.
I was like,
a little bit of a delay
why
there.
are you paused there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I mean, it happens, but...
This is far from the longest pause we've had so far.
True.
I'm not the fastest person in the world, you know.
I mean, I've done that in my Bloodborne vid, so I'm not going to judge.
And Gary's very upset. Because we left. We weren't supposed to leave. Although really, in a metaphysical sense, we didn't technically leave this room.
True.
But Gary must have woken up and not seen us here, so in a way we did leave. It's very hard to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in Murder by Death, where they have the moving rooms, and they think they go back in the same room, but there's no one there.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, room full of empty people. Anyway, we have 2 more to get. One is that portrait room we saw to the left there, and the other one is up the stairs where we haven't gone yet. I'm not sure if I remember whether the rock was dented before. Do you know? Can you remember? Because I can't.
Good question. Ooh.
So let's go up the stairs.
Is that going to be a sliding tile puzzle?
No. Thank goodness they don't do that. Well, we don't seem to have much of a choice. We better jump down the hole. This works too, I guess.
True.
Wow, trippy. Anyway. So, yeah, that was kind of reckless.
A bit.
Eve's a little too impetuous for her own good. Gary will get kind of upset when this happens. So you can either worry about yourself or worry about Gary. Doesn't make a difference from now on. You and he are pretty tight at this point.
That's good.
So what you need to do to get into the Jewel Box of Temptation is correctly guess the 2 planets that were not there when you started. That's a little cut, kind of an obvious cut I made to cut out all the parts where I was screwing this up. Failed several times, and since that chest has teeth in it, you might guess that when you get it wrong, it eats you.
Fair enough.
Well, I should say, it doesn't eat you. That would be an insta-kill. It bites you. And now this is the last puzzle we have to deal with. It's really a little bit difficult to find out what's different when they do look so similar. But if you pay very close attention, you'll notice at a certain point, when you're facing away, that one of them is moving. It's this one at the top. Now this one does not have a penalty for doing stuff wrong, other than wasting time. Which if you tried to do this by trial and error, I feel bad for you, because it would probably take 10 minutes.
Oh god, yeah.
So yeah, don't do that. I was going to say earlier, this sculpture in the middle is actually quite incredible. Like, it's really good pixel art.
Uh-huh.
They even do a good job of making it seem three-dimensional. So yeah, this is a very rare self-portrait of 𝘱𝘳𝘳, not including his face, obviously. Oh, by the way, I looked it up and I have confirmed that the paintings we saw earlier of the guy with the creepy eyes is definitely not a self-portrait of 𝘱𝘳𝘳.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thing. So we really do not know what 𝘱𝘳𝘳 looks like. We never do. This is actually the final room of the game. It's like it says final stage. And the final trap of the game. If you choose to sleep in there, which I don't because I'm nervous, Eve will start to have a dream where she remembers things from her childhood. If you let it go on, you learn some interesting things about her. For instance, that the handkerchief was a gift from her mother. Sorry, from her mother for her 8th birthday, I think. But every time you choose to continue the dream, Eve will lose another health point, sort of unbeknownst to you. If you let it go on too long, she will die.
And is that just a permanent or a temporary loss, or what?
I'm not sure. I think you just reload from the last save if you do that. In any case, now we have gotten out of the final dungeon, and so this is the proper ending of the game, just like we had last time. We're just in the dark gallery, and we need to find the fabricated world painting.
Oh.
I didn't cut anything out at this point because we are going to see a different ending. So, one thing you may have noticed is that the path back to where we were has disappeared. I was actually thinking about going to see the final stage sculpture, but we're not going to see it in this playthrough. So, again, if you want to see it yourself, play the game. It's a great game.
Fair enough.
I have spoiled all the puzzles, and given that it is a puzzle game, that might not be ideal, but you know.
Oh well.
You can try to go back to the sketchbook, and yeah, actually it does let you. So you can go back through the whole rest of the gallery if you want. One thing you can do in this game that's kind of interesting is if you go back to earlier areas with Gary, when you didn't have him before, Gary will explain the meanings of words that Eve doesn't know. And from then on, those paintings will have the proper words instead of question marks in the description.
Ah.
That actually has a relevance that I'll spoil here because I'm not sure if we're going to comment in the last video. There's a gallery that you can get to after you have completed a second playthrough of the game, which will have all of the paintings that you looked at in your playthroughs. However, if Gary hasn't looked at them with Ebe, you won't see the question marks. Sorry, you will see the question marks. You won't see the proper name of it. So we saw this last time. Gary jumps through the painting. Ebe's mom comes along. I might point out that if you go with Ebe's mom, you will get a seriously bad ending, which is called Ebe All Alone. Eventually, Ebe's mother disappears, and Ebe is left by herself in the dark gallery.
God.
Which I guess is what 𝘱𝘳𝘰𝘱𝘦 was trying to do, but you still don't see 𝘱𝘱𝘰𝘱. Ebe is just by herself. It's one of the worst endings in the game. There is only one that I would say is even worse, and that one I'm not going to spoil. There's actually an Ebe wiki for anyone who does want to spoil it for themselves, which is very well taken care of. It's small, but it's a good wiki.
That's good.
Anyway, so far things were a lot like our last playthrough. Ebe stepped through the painting. She doesn't seem to remember what she was doing. And Gary was nowhere to be found. Here he is. Well, this is distressingly familiar. He still doesn't remember us. You know, I really thought I'd done a better job in this one.
Yeah. Or maybe he does. Or
I'm yanking your chain. Obviously, since I put the handkerchief on him, things are different in this playthrough.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gary calls Ebe by name without remembering that he does know her name. It just came out. So he has a shadowy suspicion that they do know each other.
Yeah.
But it is kind of weird for like an apparently 17-year-old boy to say he thinks he knows a 9-year-old girl. But then he notices the handkerchief on his hand, which is certainly not his. So, kind of sad thing for me personally. When I originally played through this game, forgot what it was that gave the memory, and I thought it was Ebe's candy that she received from Gary that showed that they had the memory. I completely got it turned around. Instead, it's Ebe's handkerchief that she gives to him that causes the memory. The candy, I think, is long gone. Like, maybe Mary eats it or something.
Aww.
But no, he does finally remember Ebe. They made it out together. And yeah, Mary didn't. Which, not exactly a hooray, but it's good for all concerned.
Anime! Happy anime face.
Yep. I love Gary's happy anime face. So yeah, he's got to keep going, but he says he wants to launder the handkerchief before he gives it back, because it's her nice handkerchief. He can't just give it back to her bloody. And since he has to give her back her handkerchief, they are going to see each other again. So this is the nice ending of Ebe.
Yeah.
It's called Promise of Reunion. And because we got it, we actually get proper credits.
Fair enough.
It's the way a lot of games work. I don't remember if Undertale worked quite this way. Do you get credits in Undertale no matter what happens?
I think so. I think for the worst ending you don't.
That would make sense. If Toby Fox thinks you don't care about the story, why on earth would you care about the credits? So yeah, here they're talking about people who helped with video game music and sound effects. I've completely forgotten what BGM means, but it's a term that's frequently used for a soundtrack. There were actually a lot of contributors to the soundtrack, and also some apparently like licensed music or like royalty-free music that was used.
Let's see. Background music.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I love how there are like 30 credits for the music and sound effects. It's like one guy made everything except for the music. So yeah, now we get a little piece of art. Promise of Reunion. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's one of my favorite indie games. I think one of the most artsy indie games I've ever played. And we'll see you for the next game. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.